Hey everyone, in today's video, I want to share 3 benefits of using student journals in the classroom. Now, we teach our students how to write in a very structured way, and that is necessary, of course. I have videos for how to teach students opinion writing, how to teach students how to write informative writing, how-to writing, and so on. And that is when we usually walk through what that writing structure looks like, how to write a sentence, how to write a paragraph, right? Those are very structured forms of writing, and that is all great and necessary. But there's another type of writing that doesn't require too much time, and it's a pretty low stress, high impact activity, which is why I wanted to share it with you. So in today's video, I am sharing 3 benefits of student journaling, and I'm sharing some notes on how you can do it in your K-2 classroom. Before I dive in, I would love to know if you have students use journals in your own classrooms. If so, write down below in the comments, let me know what grade level you teach, and kind of just a little blurb about how your students use them. Is it completely for free writing? Do they have like reading comprehension journals? Just a little note. It helps to see kind of what other teachers are doing and how they're using their journals, and we'll see if it lines up with what I'm gonna share today. If you're ready to dive in, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, let's go. Alright, so I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but normally when we're teaching writing, it is in a very structured way. And again, of course, that is how it is supposed to be, right? That is research-based. Great writing instruction is that it is structured. You are showing students exactly how to do things, following, an I do, we do, you do model, so on. While it is effective, I'm sure you've seen in your own classrooms, especially in the K-2 realm, that some of your students can be a bit overwhelmed by this daunting process of writing. I've talked about plenty of times in my other writing videos just how hard writing actually is cognitively for our young students. So while structured writing is necessary and is over here, there's this other type of writing, this journal writing, that doesn't need to be done often to have a high impact. And that's what I'm going to share about today. The first benefit of having students keep their own journals is they learn while writing. Now, I read this book over the summer, Best Practices in Writing Instruction. I can link it down below for you. And one of the whole chapters in this book was writing to learn, and how when we actually write down the information that we are processing, it helps us learn it. And there were a few different activities students could do to help them write to learn, and journaling was one of them. When students are writing to learn or processing the information that they've just taken in, they're actually doing both a cognitive and a metacognitive process, which helps increase student learning. Not only are they doing the cognitive task of writing things down in a journal, but they're also working through that metacognition to help them figure out, what did I just learn? What were some of my takeaways? What's something I didn't quite understand? And so on. Our young students, even in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, can reflect upon their learning, and that's a process we want them to actually learn how to do continuously, whether they're writing it down in a journal or not. After we teach a lesson, we usually have some sort of closure piece, right, where we're asking them, okay, what were our takeaways? What did we learn? How does it connect? What questions do we have? All that type of knowledge. So we do have students share that out loud, but when we can actually put it in a journal, we're increasing that learning, again, through the cognitive and metacognitive process of doing this. Pretty much after any lesson you've taught, whether it be a read aloud and you have a question you want to ask your students, whether it be a new math skill or a science or a social studies topic, after that lesson, you can have students take out their journal and jot down some key takeaways. Now, I always express this, but in K-2, be sure to temper those expectations. Think about what you are actually expecting from your students to write down after they've learned a lesson. If they are, in kindergarten, what might that look like? For your kindergarten students, you may have just taught them what doubles facts are, and you want students to write down a key takeaway from learning about doubles facts. What did you learn about doubles facts? Now, you will explicitly teach your students how to write in their journals, and for your kindergarten students, that might be drawing a picture, making a diagram. So if they've just learned about doubles, they might write 3 plus 3, or they might draw a picture of 2 dots and 2 dots. While it might not look like much, your students actually had to think about, okay, what did we just learn in math? Okay, we learned about doubles. What's a doubles fact? How can I show that? A lot of work actually went into that, and you can quickly look at your student's journal and be like, boom, they know example of a doubles fact. They get it. Or if they write 1 plus 2 equals 3, you're like, okay, they didn't really get it. We can go back and reteach. Now, especially when you're first starting to use these journals, a super open-ended prompt like, tell me what you've learned might be a little too much for them. It might be a little too daunting. So feel free to kind of narrow that in and use some more specific prompts on what key takeaways they should have gotten and kind of ask them for more information. For example, if we're using that doubles fact, instead of saying, write down a key takeaway from what we learned today, you might tell students instead to think of what you know about doubles facts and share an example of one in your journal. You can see how changing the wording of that isn't as daunting for students. They know exactly what to do, but they still have to go through that cognitive and metacognitive process to think about what they've learned and provide an example. But sometimes, like I said, if you just say, go ahead and share what you've learned or share a question you might have, it might be a little overwhelming to them at first. So to recap, that first benefit is writing to learn. I love using simple writing tasks to help students process their new information. Benefit number 2 of journal writing is that it builds student empowerment. Now, with a student writing journal, I usually just have one journal that they keep throughout the year. And if they fill it up, they can get another one. But what I mean by that is I don't have a science journal and a math journal. I just keep one, and it can be filled with all sorts of information. And I like that because it shows the flexibility of this journal and that this journal isn't going to be this like intense thing, right? It's just a book that has all of our thoughts. It's a place where we process our thoughts, and I do that on purpose for this reason. So while one day in our journal we might be writing down some takeaways from a social studies lesson, the next day I might brainstorm 5 things that make me happy. And the day after that, maybe I came into school and I was feeling really sad about something that happened at home, so I kind of write it down in my journal. Another reason I like this kind of relaxed attitude about it is, again, that student empowerment. There are going to be a lot of journal prompts that allow for student choice, where my students can really kind of take their own thoughts, take what's going on in their world, and get it out on paper. Now, I do try to give journal prompts that don't necessarily have a right or wrong answer. Even the one I was sharing from the first benefit, where I would ask them to provide an example of a doubles fact, that of course is a correct or incorrect answer, but I let students know that this is not something to be graded, right? And if they write down an example that is not correct, there's no harm here. There's no penalty done. This isn't getting, reworked and edited and published. This isn't getting graded. This is just a place to informally process what we're thinking. Other prompts you're going to want to offer your students might be as simple as 5 things that make you feel loved, or 5 people that make you feel loved, or 2 people, 3 people, whatever you want to do. In terms of our own mental health, there have been so many studies done about the benefits of journaling as adults and even for kids. For instance, if our kids are feeling stressed, anxious, sad, angry, being able to take those thoughts and kind of get it out of our head and onto paper can help our students feel a lot better. And on the flip side, if they are writing down people that make them feel loved, or things they feel grateful for, or things that make them happy, then they're kind of rewiring their brain and they're thinking about the positive things in life. By using our student journals, we can really give them a safe space to get out their thoughts. We can build their student independence. And then I also like to let students know that they get to choose their audience when they're writing to their journal. Their journal is mostly just between themselves. They can write down, again, their thoughts. And sometimes I'll ask them to share a journal entry with me. And when I do this, I like to give students a stack of Post-its, and they will go ahead and put a Post-it on the journal entry they want me to read. And I let them know that they can go ahead and pick one out, and if I see a Post-it hanging out from their journal, I will read and respond to their post. Now, sometimes when students do this, they want to share a story about the weekend that maybe they didn't get to share earlier. Other times, students want to kind of show off what they learned a little bit. Sometimes if I have students that are asking questions about a lesson, that is part of the writing to learn. Sometimes, again, the metacognitive part of it is we will have students write down a question that they have about the lesson or something they're still confused about. They might want to go ahead and put a Post-it there so I can read that and help them with those questions. But again, this gives them the empowerment to have them choose the audience and choose which entries I can read. And benefit number 3 that I love about using student journals is it's basically an informal portfolio. Not only do you see the development of student writing, but you also get to see their understanding develop throughout the year as well. As they are responding to different journal prompts, you get to see how they process information, the different things they learned, the questions they had throughout the year. It's kind of like a fun capsule or portfolio where you get to see what they've learned. I know on the parent side that getting a student journal at the end of the year and getting to flip through and see the progress that my own child has made and some of the things that they've learned that maybe I didn't get to hear about at home is one of the highlights of the year for me. All right, so those are 3 of the benefits I wanted to share about student journaling, but now I just want to share a couple notes on how to do this in a K-2 classroom. The first note is to keep it simple. I mentioned this earlier, but you want this to be a low stakes activity where even if students are writing down something incorrectly, they're not getting penalized for it, right? This is just information for them to share and for you to notice so you can kind of use in your next teaching. Now, while you do want to keep it simple and keep it kind of low pressure, you do also need to explicitly teach your students what this journal writing is going to look like. Everything with K-2 is model, model, model. So the first time we have access to our journals and maybe we are going to respond to a social studies lesson, we are going to do a whole group modeled lesson of what this might look like. I will definitely have a journal page up on the board where I think aloud and I model different ways I could respond to the prompt or different takeaways I might have had from the lesson, and you can use student input to then write it in my journal on the board. Then you have your students take out their journals and they write it themselves. You'll definitely want to do a modeling session for each different type of journal writing entry that you do with your students. So if this is your first time brainstorming a list and you want them to brainstorm 5 things that make them happy, let's talk about it as a class. How might I organize this on the page? I could simply write 5 things with a comma in between. Maybe it helps me to write a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go ahead and fill them in. Again, these are all great writing techniques that students can learn about organization that they're applying in an informal way. Another note that I've mentioned a few times is that you're going to want to offer some writing prompts, right, to make it a little more specific. Now, I love a completely open-ended free write where students can write whatever they want. And unless we're doing like a write to learn activity where I really want them to share something specific, I will often offer the option to brainstorm 5 things that make you happy, or write about whatever you'd like. This again gives students choice. Some students are really going to take this journal idea and run with it. They will love getting down their ideas, drawing pictures, sharing what's going on in their life, and other students are going to have a little hesitancy towards it. It might take them a little bit to warm up to this idea. So if you provide the option, you have students who maybe want to go ahead and follow the prompt, and you have other students that might just want to share about whatever they're feeling. And lastly, as for how often I would use a student journal, I really only use it about 2 to 3 times per week and only about 5 to 10 minutes per time. Now, when you actually pull this out in your day is going to entirely depend on what type of journaling your students are doing. You might have them come into the classroom and start off with something positive and actually just write out their ideas. You might have them come into the classroom on Monday morning and just say, hey, let's all take 5 minutes and draw a picture or write about what you did over the weekend. Or it might be a random Wednesday after a science lesson and you have students take out their journals and you have them write down 1 takeaway and 1 question from the lesson they just learned. Now, while I only use it a few times a week and not for a super long duration, I do like to keep it basically open for students that finish other things throughout the day. So if students have finished a lesson, if there's like a free choice option, their writing journal is always one of those options available to them. So again, if you have a student who really enjoys writing, finds it beneficial, they can continue to foster that passion by writing in their journal. All right, last quick takeaway is that you don't need to spend a ton of money on these. Composition notebooks are very cheap, but if you are in kindergarten or the beginning of your 1st grade, think about the paper choices you are giving your students. If you are giving them a plain black composition notebook that's really made for like 2nd grade students or even 3rd and 4th grade, that's probably going to discourage them from writing because they don't know how to write on lines that small, right? So you do want to try to find the proper developmentally appropriate paper for your students. In K and 1st grade, I would definitely have a lined paper with big illustration boxes just to kind of encourage them, to remind them that they can use pictures and that they want to use their best handwriting. Again, we do keep it low pressure, but little encouragements like the lined paper are just like silent encouragements to make sure that you're doing your best handwriting. They just reinforce what they've been learning anyway. All right, so there were 3 reasons I love using student journals in a K-2 classroom. I would love to know from you if there are any other journaling activities or benefits that you know of. Let me know about them down in the comments. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.